myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Thursday night and as always I'm joined by Supermac and John Gibson. How are you, lads?
Good, thanks, Steve.
I'm good.
Yeah, really well.
Great to see you guys, great to see you. And the season's over, so we can breathe a sigh of relief and not be worried about results and where we're going to finish. And Malcolm, after last weekend's game, we finished a comfortable 12th.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Where just so recently we were really petrified that Fulham might just get a run going and that they'd overtake Newcastle United, and we finished in 12th place. I am just quite staggered by it. I would say well done the players, and I suppose well done Steve Bruce as well. But I suppose it's a highly satisfactory end to a highly unsatisfactory season.
It's a good way to describe it, Mal, I think. What's your thoughts, Gibbo? Would you say Malcolm's hit it on the money there?
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, to a certain extent, I'm a little bit worried because I think 12th papers over the cracks. That's the first thing to say. You also worry that it'll actually be believed by Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce that all is wonderful. But when you go back 12 months, we were told at the end of Steve Bruce's first season that we were going to have a real pop to be in the top 10. We were going to have a real pop at the two cup competitions. Well, in fact, we haven't made progress this season. We've stood still. We've got 45 points. We've got 44 the season before, which is near as damn it exactly the same. And we're 12th instead of 13th. And we only made 12th because we scored more goals than Wolves. Our record was exactly wins, draws, losses, and goal difference, a -20, was exactly the same as Wolves, who were 13th. So we've done exceptionally well to run on the same spot as we did a year ago. And of course, that's Newcastle's want at the moment, and actually that we do tend to run on the same spot. Yes, I think we did terrific in the end to get 5 wins, 2 draws, and 2 defeats out the last 9. There's no question about that. But that only pulled us up to where we are. And we can't forget that we had a run before that when we got 2 wins in 21 games. So It hasn't been a successful season. It's been a successful end to the season, but not a successful season.
Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
Yeah, go on, man.
Yeah, what I would say is, though, what I do find somewhat disconcerting is the fact that the late run, it was pretty much on the strength of Willock's goals. He's on loan. The loan's coming to an end. For sure, I think he'll be back at Arsenal next season. And there's nobody around that's in the club that could equal that kind of job that he did, and certainly they're not going to buy anybody to replace, and so it leaves me somewhat concerned that what we're actually left with still ain't good enough.
I would say you're right, lads. It's it's a season to forget. There's been worse seasons than that, though. And the back end of the season with Joe Willock banging the goals in was enjoyable, and it was great that we finally got back into the ground. Some of us, anyway, just to see the lads in black and white play. So hopefully, with life moving on and hopefully things getting back to normal, it'll be a full St James's Park for the start of the new season. And we need a takeover to go through, really, Mal. That's the problem. We need a takeover to go through, because if not, we are going to be in Groundhog Day.
Yes, and everything is hanging in the air still. Mike Ashley is going to extraordinary lengths, in terms of court cases and so on, to try to get this up and running again, and to get that deal completed. And the Football League, sorry, not the Football League, the Premier League, they just seem to be doing again pretty much what they were doing last summer. I find it quite incredible that they're just dragging their heels again. There's with this investigation they're doing, that there will be an answer by August. For heaven's sake, that's next season. The business that Mike Ashley wants to do, and the consortium that is looking to buy from him, they want to get it done now at the end of the season. For heaven's sake, it's no use over in August. And I honestly think that it smacks to me that there is still a powerful undercurrent in the Premier League that don't want Newcastle to do this deal. I'm highly suspicious of the whole situation. I really am, and I'm quite horrified by it. I was horrified last summer, and I am here 12 months later, still horrified. And this
John.
is these are the football authorities, and they're making a right pig's ear of it.
They are. John, I mean, Malcolm again is right there, isn't he? It's Groundhog Day. We're going to be going round in circles if this takeover doesn't get allowed this summer, and Newcastle fans deserve better than that.
There's absolutely no question about that, Steve. We know through the 14 years that we've had Mike Ashley that season upon season upon season is exactly this. The only time by an absolute fluke there was anything different is when we finished fifth top under Pardew. And that, ironically, told us how bad things are when you're with Ashley, because we immediately, instead of building on that and saying, here's a platform to be a top 5 club regularly, the next season we went immediately back to what we were before, mid-table and below. Because that's the way Ashley operates. And until Ashley goes, we know exactly what we're in for. Same again, same again, same again. The only thing we don't know, whether we just escape relegation or whether we go down like we did. The simple bottom line, and every Geordie knows it, and every Geordie is absolutely sick to death of it, is that we need a takeover. And without a takeover, there is absolutely no hope whatsoever, because we go into next season without takeover being completed, probably because of the time factor. If that's so, we'll have wasted all the summer for team building. We will go in with the same owner and the same manager. And what does that mean? It means the same old fight and battle, and being told that we're certain we'll survive when we've got our best players on the pitch, etc., etc. Individual were absolutely fed up of that, but that is what we're looking at until there's a takeover, no question.
Yep, sad but true, and lots of questions coming in, so we'll try and get to a few of those tonight. Tom Dixon was first in with this one. He says, question for Malcolm and John. Are you happy with the England squad for the Euros? And which 7 players would you get rid of from the squad? I mean, it's a tough one. We don't have the list of players handy, but I just guess a general question there, Malcolm. Are you happy with the players that seem to be getting ready to take part in the delayed Euros?
Yes, I think so. We haven't seen England play for some time, but I have to say, I've been really surprised at how well Gareth Southgate has done as an England manager. I still remember very clearly what was going on at Middlesbrough, and I never imagined that he would get such a position as he has now. But he's got it, and he has done all right. I think there are some absolutely cracking young English players, and he's prepared to give them a chance, I feel. And so I am quite content to sit back and just see how they do with what he's selected. And I've got no criticism whatsoever at the moment. I am thoroughly looking forward to the event over the summer.
John, same question. Are you happy with that England squad that seems to be being put together by Southgate, and do you think we've got a chance?
Yeah, golden generation Mark II, isn't it? We had it with Lampard and Gerrard, and we never actually won anything with that. But the New England players, young players, it's exactly the same. Only this time we've got to do something about it. I'm apprehensive about the injuries we're going into the Euros. There's always injuries, and they're not excuses. But we've got Maguire, his outfits, Grealish, in terms of he's hardly played at the end of the season, etc., etc. So. Yes, I'm a little apprehensive. Do I think we're going to win it? No, I don't. Do I think we can win it? Yeah, I do think we can win it, but I don't think we're going to win it. But of course, boys, here's the unknown quantity. Our great coach, Graves, who's behind 5 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats to end the season, might just go down to England and sprinkle his magic all over the thing. And like he turned Steve Bruce into a prince, he might turn Gareth Southgate into one, and there we've won something.
And
would have been nice.
In all fairness, John,
boys strike.
Right, but in all fairness, John, to the guy, he's got tremendous international experience on the coaching side.
Absolutely, with Belgium.
Time with Martin, with Belgium.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a very shrewd move by Gareth Southgate, but also when I saw that, I thought, Gareth is in the know. He knows who's made the difference here at Newcastle during this season, and so he's wanting to have a bit of that for the England side. So every picture tells a story to me, and that certainly does tell a story about what's happened at Newcastle.
Well, these 2 questions, I suppose, dovetail together nicely. The first one there from Jeff: do you agree that Bruce deserves credit for biting the bullet and sorting many of the issues that you and others had pointed out, including accepting Jones? And Alan Thompson saying, have Newcastle overachieved, do you think, finishing 12th? I mean, we covered it a little bit at the start, but we can probably dovetail those 2 questions together. Mal?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Newcastle have overachieved. But does Bruce deserve credit for biting the bullet? I'm not so sure that he had any other option but to in the end. And if you see, I am still of the belief that Jones was brought into the Newcastle fold independent of Steve Bruce, and that as a manager, Steve Bruce would not have wanted it. But in the end, I think he had to swallow his pride and accept Jones, and I think maybe he saw the light in as much that he realised that Jones could be very beneficial to the team and individual players as well. And so, but you know, and in an interview, he actually claimed credit for bringing Jones in, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So I think that was his way of saying, yeah, I, of course I accept it. I brought him in.
Yeah, I mean, what was your thoughts on that, John?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the man that stands on the bridge is always going to get the custard pie in the face, because that's why he's on the bridge. So if you criticise, as I've done, Steve Bruce, on things that have happened this season, of course, if things go right at the end, you've got to give him some credit. I think they went right at the end because we did virtually no business, boys, in the January transfer window. This we did do was so significant, it produced what's happened at the end of the season, because we signed Willock, who had 7 goals in games and 8 goals all in, and every one of his goals was crucial. It wasn't the 4th and 5th goal in an easy win. So we signed Willock, and that's when we signed Graham Jones. So January kept us up, because we, for once, right, whether it was luck or design, what we did in January by getting Willock on the pitch and getting Jones on the training pitch made the whole difference to Newcastle opinion, because Jones' impact, no doubt, Steve, you'll be talking about him later on, but the impact of Jones on the team and the different way we started playing after his arrival and the impact Willock had on match day changed things for Newcastle. So did Steve Bruce get lucky, or did he plan all this and pluck Jones and Willock and get great for doing that? Whatever it happened, I think the input of Jones and Willock was the most significant thing in our change of fortunes, from winning 2 out of 21 to winning 5 and drawing 2 out of 9 at the end of the season. I do think what happened to us in January was the basis for the run-in.
Yeah, okay. Joe Walker says, Mal, are you still there, Malcolm, or is he frozen? He's frozen. He's gone. He's gone to take the dog for a walk. It's
It
that
looks
time
as
of
if
night.
he's... Yep.
He was looking very pensive, and that's it. He's gone again. Joe Walker says, Gibbo, so Gibbo, after the
That's
Brighton
it.
defeat, did you think we would get anywhere near 12?
That's a terrific question, and the answer's got to be, the initial answer's got to be no, because it was very, very interesting. I was staggered that after what happened at Brighton, that Steve Bruce actually survived, because at that stage it looked as if Steve Bruce must go when we lost so badly 3-0 at Brighton. And of course you don't think you're going to make 12. The interesting thing is the input of Jones. When he came in January 27th, I think he come right at the end. His first game, if you remember, Steve, was Everton. And he changed the complete system from being timid and defensive. We went into a diamond system with split strikers up front, and we won 2-0 at Everton with a terrific display. And 2 games later, we repeated that against Southampton. The trouble then was that system had only worked well because we had Aaron's legs at the base, and we had, as a split strikers, we had Saint-Maximin and Wilson. Once they were taken out the equation, and all 3 were injured against Southampton, we didn't have the backup players that could play that system. And the system then become a disaster. We won 6 games without a win culminating in Brighton. Then, presumably with the input of Jones and Bruce agreeing to it and being part of it, and fair dues, Steve, for that. Revolution number 2 came on, where we got a new system where Murphy and Ritchie, who were the forgotten men, were brought out of the wilderness to play wing back on both sides of the pitch and were superb. And Willock was put back in the team, having scored as a sub against Spurs, and all of a sudden everything, and we took off. And it was a terrific end of the season. No, I wasn't expecting it after Brighton. I did, despite what had happened after Brighton, think we'd survive, but only because the bottom 3, Steve, was so bad consistently all season, Sheffield United, West Brom and Fulham, that they would keep us up. We wouldn't keep ourselves up. But in the end, we kept ourselves up. And that was absolutely terrific. We've got to give some credit to Bruce, but I think we've also acknowledged Jones and Willock in that as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And Jones really coming in, for me, changed it. We've already talked about him, going into the England setup as well for the summer. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here, John, of course, but, should the takeover not go through this summer and we have to start the season with Steve Bruce and Graham Jones in charge, it'll be interesting, I guess, to see, what the team is like, with a full pre-season under Graham Jones.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, the facts are there and are undeniable. Newcastle scored 27 goals in the 18 matches Graham Jones was coaching them. They scored 19 in the 20 matches with him. So they scored 27 and 18 with him and 19 and 20 without him. That is a huge difference. We couldn't score goals for Toffee, and all of a sudden we are. And that is because Jones is a front foot coach, where Bruce is a defensive coach. And Jones had been brought up. I mean, we know Roberto Martinez is his great disciple. They played together way back, and they were through clubs in this country and then Belgium. So he came with a lot of bright ideas. I mean, it's one kid because he was a genuine footballer, just rank and file, going around Wigan and various clubs, having started in non-ball up here, but has turned out to be a top quality coach. And his input is absolutely undeniable. And the greatest hope we have for next season, if the takeover doesn't happen, so we're stuck with exactly the same structure, Newcastle, and we haven't got Willock, and my Jove, he's going to take some replacing, is that Jones will be able to make a significant input, because we're not going to be able to do much in the transfer market, which is frightening. And without Willock, where do the goals come outside of Wilson? So there is a problem, but Jones will help. There's absolutely no question about that. He will have a significant input in what we do in the pre-season and being ready for the start of the season.
Billy Gaddis, good evening, mate. He says, may I ask if you think the club could be offered good money for ASM or Wilson? Do you think Ashley will cash in? The stories of only £12 million available for transfers are clearly got Billy thinking that if there's an offer comes in for ASM, for example, John, we might cash in. Do you think that's a possibility?
I do. I mean, I hate to think about it. In fact, I don't want to think about it. But yes, I do, because Ashley's all about money. We know that. The truth is, if I can make money, I'll do it. But I will definitely not spend money. So we know that he's not going to spend. The guy is saying 12 million. I've seen 8 to 10 that might be given to Bruce to spend this summer. If he gets good money for a player, he will sell him. There's absolutely no question about that. And the worry on that is, where does that leave you? I mean, we have talked about Wilson's goals and Willock's goals and the input of the wing backs. at the end, and Richie and Murphy, which was absolutely terrific. But we need the Saint because we haven't got enough off-the-cuff cleverness, streetwise cuteness, direct running that he gives us. And if we don't have that, we are so predictable, it's untrue. So we need to keep him under all circumstances. And you probably saw that he's come out in an interview this week, Answer Maximum, and said, I'm sorry, I don't want to be in any more relegation fights. I want to have a pop and be top and have a go in the cups. And my message to those that matter, which is obviously Ashley and to a lesser extent Steve Bruce, because he hasn't got the purse strings, we do something about that. Now, if you are Sam Maximum, he's absolutely right to say that. He is not a local lad. He's a guy from France. He doesn't want to waste his career fighting stay alive, which is what Newcastle have done to Ashley. He has got a right to say that. And the worry is that either he will agitate to go or Ashley will carry on him if we don't do something next season. And it's very difficult to be optimistic apart from the takeover, Steve.
Yeah, okay. Talking of that, Philip Shuttleworth says the Chronicle today said arbitration would start in July. Can you ask John, how does the journalist know that it's going to start then? Is it speculation? I haven't seen the article, so I can't comment, John, really.
No, I mean, what happens in the main with all this takeover, and you know, Steve, on other parts of it, nobody says anything officially unless it's absolutely dragged out of them. But every whispering in corners and marking cards, and what you've got to do is work out if the angle's just good for them or it's actual truth. It's like Cummings in Big Bad Boris, isn't it? Do you believe the liar who come up to Bernard Castle, or do you believe Big Bad Boris? Or do you believe both lie through the back teeth? The same thing with this, isn't it? Who's lying less than the other? But and as Malcolm said before he went and took the short, as he said, that the time factor doesn't mean a thing to the Premier League, and that they are quite happy just to mess us about. But the close season is so short. Before we know where we are, we're back into next season, and of course we're treading water, and Ashley's shown total disinterest in the summer in trying to keep us afloat, because he just looks at Newcastle 12th. Okay, Jones has done a good job. Newcastle have got 12. We haven't got Willock, but we'll get somebody else on loan, and we'll do it again next season. And if he could take 12th next season, he would be as happy as Larry, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would be. Marty the Magpie says, question for John and Malcolm. Do you think Joe Willock will be back? Do you think Joe Willock will be back at Newcastle next season, Mal?
No, I don't. I don't know whether everything's completely changed, but years ago when I was managing, if you had a player on loan who you were seriously considering buying, if he proved to be good enough, you got the fee sorted out in the original agreement for the loan. And so, you know, if all of a sudden he was scoring 10 goals a week, the other side, the other club can't treble and quadruple the fee. Well, this, I think, is the case with what Arsenal have been talking of. But I just get the feeling that there is no way that they will allow Willock to leave Arsenal permanently. I don't think they will. They've probably seen something in him that they haven't seen before, and they think, right, well, we'll work on that and see where it goes. So I personally, and very sadly, don't think we'll see Willock playing for Newcastle next season.
Gibbo, do you agree?
I do. Without a shadow, I think the only remote hope is we get him on the last day of the transfer window on loan for he plays in the season friendlies for Arsenal, doesn't pull up too many trees. Arteta can then fudge the situation and say, well, I can keep him, and if he starts scoring the goal by sticking him out on loan, he's still my player, but I can allow him to go out on loan to get experience because he's only 21. But I mean, I think you go back to Arsenal and that'll be it. If you remember, we had it with Holding last season, centre half. We were going to get on loan from Arsenal Holding, and of course, at the end of the day, we never did because all of a sudden, just everything had been agreed from to come to Newcastle suddenly decided to. I think this will happen with Willock. Let's look at the other way. Our only chance of getting him is on loan again, not just because Arteta will be reluctant to cut the ties in case he's made a major mistake. But do you think if Arteta told Ashley tomorrow that for 20 million or 25 million or 30 million, Ashley would do the deal at that cash? Because I do not. I do not. We're not going to be able to buy him outright because Ashley won't do the deal unless he sells the Milburn stand, of course, and rents it out to whoever. I don't think that we can afford to get him under the way Ashley's going to operate this summer. And I think the only remote hope that we can cling on to, because I'm desperate to get him back, the only remote hope we can cling on to is that on the last day of the transfer, we'll get him on loan for 6 months. Or we don't, but come Christmas, if he hasn't pulled up trees at Arsenal, we'll get him on loan for 6 months in January again, like we just did this year. But in the main, I don't we're going to Joe Willock again. And that frightens me because we haven't got forwards outside of Callum Wilson that can score 8 goals in half a season, and this guy's a midfielder. We haven't got forwards that can score those goals, Malcolm. And by the way, may I say, with my mate sitting there, Mr. McDonald, that for me has been the best scoring 21-year-old Newcastle have got since they got the big man there way back in the 70s, because he had exactly the same age. Because Willock's goal scoring from midfield has been quite startling. Yeah. I mean, if he kept that going over a season, how many goals is he going to have?
Sure. And when you think of the goal that he scored against Fulham, good heavens above, he started his run from just over the halfway line, and he had 4 or 5 players around him, and he just kept going, and in the end, there was a bit of a ricochet off a defender in the box, and he still had his balance and the wherewithal to get the strike in. In it went. Thank you very much. We're in the lead. Who else makes such runs from midfield?
That's
Newcastle United.
Ties in with Gary's question, Mal. He says, now that Willock's unlikely, do you think Bruce will make finding a box-to-box midfielder a priority now that we know what a difference it made to the team and indeed the results?
It's a great question. It's a great question because it's something that has been lacking so in Newcastle's midfield. We've got midfield players who hate to cross the halfway line. Willock, he can't wait to get across, and I get so frustrated and even sickened by seeing midfield players causing the centre halves to have to keep dropping off. They can't get pushed up to be in the comfortable position that they want to be in because there's midfielders sitting so deep and want to knock 60-yard glory balls. There was a spell where Wilson, he went about 7 or 8 games without scoring. He was the only guy in the opposing half for the vast majority of the game of all of those games. There was no support whatsoever, and you can't expect a centre forward who's got 2 centre halves around him and a covering fullback to just go it alone. It doesn't work these days. You've got to get support there. I watched the game last night, the Man United defeat on penalties, and both sides, they were flooding forward looking to support forwards all of the while. And I found it a terrific game of football, albeit I thought that Manchester United were not the better side, not by any means. But nevertheless, 2 sides looking to support forwards all of the while. And I was thinking, particularly in the first half of the season, that there was nothing like that in the Newcastle side. Joe Willock has, I think he's opened up a lot of people's eyes, both supporters and even management at Newcastle, and I hope they really have taken notice just of how he plays, and he's not difficult. Albeit, I think that Steve Bruce, I'm not sure he's got the ability, nor have his coaches, but I'm sure that the other fella has, on how to get support around Willock. We shall see if Willock should come back on loan. But if he doesn't, we must get somebody who makes those kind of runs. They're not just imperative to your side, but they're also killer runs. And they're so difficult to pick up. It overworks the opposing midfield. It frightens the life out of centre halves when they're marking up and they're seeing a fella just come tearing through with a ball at his feet, with a goal-scoring track record, we have to find something like that, somebody like that, to do what Willock has been doing. Okay.
So frustrating, Mal, because we've got somebody, right. and that is the big concern. Why we can't go and break the bank? It would be as Stu Penman says in the chat, a statement of intent. And of course, we spent 40 million. We always mention it on Joe Linton, and we spent over 20 million on Almiron. Around about 20 million on Almiron. So Mike Ashley's willing to open the wallet and spend the cash at certain times. Why doesn't he try and get Willock? Because it would be a statement of intent. And bearing in mind as well, supporters are going to be back in the stadium, we hope, in August. Well, he's going to need to sell some season tickets.
Yeah. Albeit, I think the club have just been taking the money, haven't they? All the way through lockdown, they've been taking the money out of season ticket holders' accounts. Yeah,
but we're all in credit now, so we all get. I didn't pay for the Sheffield United game. We're in credit. I mean, I'll be in credit now until I die. I would imagine if I keep my season ticket ticking over.
So Newcastle United are trying to make the thing fair and square for everybody.
Yeah, they are. Go on, John. You were going to make a point.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why Ashley spent 40 million on Joe Linton is that he was told by Newcastle United he would get 80 million after Joe Linton had played 2 seasons and racked up a the goals. Well, he'll get 80 pence if he sells them this summer. So he was doing that because he still had an interest in making money of Newcastle United. And it was the same with Almiron, a young guy, 20, who had done terrific in America. He'll do terrific in the Premier League, and then you'll double your money. He's not now interested in doubling your money because he's not only seen what's happened with Joe Linton, but he isn't, with respect, going to double his money on Almiron. He might get it, but he wouldn't double his money because he has goals. But not going to round to double his money on anybody he buys this summer because he won't, in his is hopefully not going to be around. So he ain't going to cash in. He's going to spend 40 million on somebody this summer or 20 million on Willock, and then the new owners, if they sell Willock on, are going to cash in, not Ashley. So Ashley won't do it. I mean, there's not a chance of seeing Shergar walking on Northumberland Street with Lord Lucan on his back than there is of Ashley spending good money this summer to do Newcastle of Hope and Barbo.
Yep, big thank you to the sponsors, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN, they're at the top of the search list, and they can protect your passwords and protect your internet activity. Big thank you again to Nathan and Gareth for their support over the last few months, and also a big shout out to Sir Bobby and the lads at skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. www.skipsandbins.com, easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. And lads, you'll be very impressed with this. Sir Bobby's got the look of Malcolm running into the box, look, with his NUFC Matters kit on, putting the ball into the back of the net. I would say it's a Bobby Dazzler. That's what they call it up here. Also a big shout out as well to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables and balls in Newcastle, and a Jab Signature, who make all of our flyers. Their boxing range coming out soon, and if you're a first time visitor to the channel, please subscribe by hitting the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, and that's it. You've subscribed. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to share to your other social media, and drop into the comments. Plenty of people in there to have a chat with, or post us a question. And as well, if you're out and about and you miss us live on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify and iTunes and other podcast providers. Just look for NUFC Matters. Don't forget, all the way through the summer, the NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk website is operational for you to donate to the food bank. Just click on that website and you can donate as much as you want to the food bank. And of course, you enter into the raffle, which will be drawn by the food bank on the 5th of August for a Newcastle supporters watch. So well worth just dropping in 20 pence, a pound, whatever you can afford. This is a hard time for the food bank when there's no football on, and they rely heavily on our donations. And of course, I will be back tomorrow night as well at 5:30 with the Fab Four. The Three Amigos is no more. The Fab Four it is. Myself, Steve Hasty, Neil Mitchell are joined permanently now by Keith Patterson from NCSL, and Ben Jacobs is our special guest tomorrow on the show, which should make for interesting reading, with both Keith and Ben giving conflicting views on the takeover, and that should make for a very interesting view tomorrow night. So 2 hour special again, as always, on a Friday night, and we will be talking about the takeover for a vast amount of time, I imagine. We have got the Steve Hasty t-shirt up on Twitter at the moment. If you want to bid for that, it is pinned to my profile. And you can bid for that. All proceeds will go to the food bank, and I think we're hedging towards £6,000 this week raised for the food bank from those t-shirts. So thanks very much for all your hard work and efforts, and get yourself on a Groupon and onto Woucher. Me, John and Malcolm, as long as we're not locked down again, we'll all be at the evening with Newcastle Legends. And God, have we waited a long time to do this? It's about a year and a half now, I think, since we had this planned. But yeah, we'll be there. The NUFC Matters crew will be there, and we're looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing people again and chatting and talking about memories and what have you. So fingers crossed, it's not going to get closed down, and we're still planning the Christmas do, which could end up being in August. We're waiting for Lee Clark to give us the date as to when he is going to be back in the UK. Of course, he is back in the management hot seat. And we'll take a different tack now, lads. And Paul Foster, amongst others, has asked about the new badge. Now, it's another one from Lee Taylor. We'll go with Paul Foster. Evening, lads. The rumours of it were changing the club crest, a revamp of the old 70s, 80s badge. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? And which badge is your favourite? And Lee Taylor says, does anyone think that changing the club's crest is a bad idea? Because, it could be one of those things that fans object to. Fans, should be consulted. What's your take on that, Malcolm? Are you a fan of the current club badge? Did you have a particular favourite? Oh, he's gone. John, what about you then? Coming to you on that question.
He's a way to look at his old shirt to see what the club badge was, and but well, I'm always big on nostalgia. To be truthful, I'm much more concerned about who we're going to sign. What badges. I do have great affection for the club badge. I'm hoping that whatever badge it is, we're not going to get a load of players kissing it next season if they manage to score a goal, because that infuriates me, because there's only those that have been a terrific servant that right to do that, in my opinion. Yeah, I like history. I like us to pay tribute to history, and I think part of it is because we may not have won something in those days, but we did a damn sight better in these days under Ashley. But I always get a little bit cynical when I think, we've had 14 years of Ashley. What will we do to pacify the fans, because we're not going to this summer? I tell you what we'll do, we'll change the club badge. Please do things that's going to make us a better team next season, and then we'll be quite happy with whatever badge is on the shirt. As long as the shirt stays black stripes, and as long as the ground stays St James's Park, on with giving us a team. Both those things, the black and white stripes and St James's Park.
I'm having a slight internet issue with you as well tonight, John. It's not as good as it normally is, and struggling to hear. Slight delay with you, mate, but we'll persevere, because we've only got about 10 minutes left. Mark says, Leicester have agreed a deal with Samaria from Lille for half the fee we agreed. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it makes you wonder when it comes to transfers, what on earth Newcastle are playing at, because nobody in their right mind, forget the fact that he's not a centre forward. No one valued Joe Linton anywhere else in the world at 40 million. Yet we paid that for him, however it was made up, whether it was partly in transfers and agents' fees, whatever. We paid 40 million for the guy. So why have we gone in with a bid for Samaria, which is, double what Leicester have now paid?
Well, I mean, the whole business that worries me is our transfer business. The scouts, the people who do it, whether it's charity or just ignorance of knowing the market. Leicester are terrific in the transfer market. They have bought brilliant and got value for money so often, and they've picked the right players to get. We haven't got a history of that. We've got a history of paying too much money for little talent, and we continue to do that. And we seem to think if we throw a couple of quid at it, we'll get them. And I mean, when you think of the way we had with Joe Linton, whereby it almost ushered Benitez to the door, because Benitez said the guy worth 40 million is worth 16 million tops. And it was almost like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's only a European Cup winner. Let's get him out the door and let's present the new manager with a fait accompli. This guy's coming to us anyway, which is what happened with Steve Bruce. And we have both very, outside of the odd occasion, one done through Rafa Benitez and Callum Wilson, which was 1 out of 4 last summer, that was worth doing, because Fraser's been a huge disappointment. For the second half of the season, Lewis hasn't been able to get in the side, and Hendrick has been a disaster. So the whole business of our recruitment has been as bad as the management of the club, from the first team coach or from the owner. We are shocking in the transfer market, Steve, and that is worrying to death. We are lucky if we get it right 1 out of 4, which is what we did with Callum.
Yeah, we got it right with Callum Wilson, all right, 100%. John, he was a great signing, and managed to get the goals for us. And I think the only worry over him was his injury record. We're not sure whether, obviously, Mal is going to make it back. So let's just spend the last 7 or 8 minutes talking about this guy. It's his birthday today, John, and somebody who you had a chance not only to see as a player and report on, but also become good friends with. Gaza, happy birthday to him.
Absolutely. And all the very best to a man who is delighted football fans the world over, not just in the Northeast, not just in England, but in Europe and beyond. One of the great personalities, both on the football and off it, that we've ever had. Somebody that became a dear friend. His ability was quite unique. And, there is a train of thought, and I also believe this, that for all he was the wonderful, exuberant player that he was, we never quite saw the full potential because of the cruel injury that he had at Spurs and when he went out to Lazio. He was never quite the same player again. Saw flashes of it, like Scotland at Wembley when he flicked the ball over Henry's head in the corner and ran away. We had wonderful cameos of what he could be. But this guy could have been, without those injuries, the best player in the world, without a shadow of doubt. And he was effervescent. He was different. When we look at him in 1990 in the World Cup, when Bobby Robson got us to the semi-finals, which is our greatest performance away from home in the World Cup. At that time, he was absolutely staggering, and Gazamania gripped the whole country. It didn't just grip football; it transcended football, and it gripped the mums and the daughters and everybody else. They just loved this cheeky chappy who was a Georgian who records it went into the top knee, and but it didn't could make a record, and that's all that mattered because he was what he was. And happy birthday to him. He's had tough times recently, physically, etc., etc. All our thoughts go out to him. God bless him. He enjoy his birthday and may he stay safe and be okay.
Yep, good stuff. Mal, we've just been talking about Gaza. I mean, it's his birthday today. He's had some ups and downs and some battles in his personal life, but what a player he was, Mal.
He really was, yeah. Quite sensational and as nutty as a fruitcake to go with it. And I'm not sure that he ever took anything seriously. But then so many players of absolutely individual outstanding ability have been like that. Rodney Marsh was a bit that way. he sort of went off at a tangent as well. And you can put Gascoigne in that pot with all those wonderful, superb individual players. He really was an absolute joy to watch. And I just wonder how much more he could have done if he had just lost the idiot in him and just looked a little more seriously at the game. But never mind, he was what he was, and he was a joy to watch. Absolute joy. Not only a joy to watch, he must have been an absolute joy to play with out in the field. And I certainly would have loved to have been on the pitch, on the same pitch as him. Playing with him properly.
That would have been good, yeah. Before we finish, Mal, he's gone again. He's not having a good time tonight. The internet has been cruel to us tonight. It's robbed us of Malcolm 3 times. That's his hat-trick. And you've seen a hat-trick before, John, haven't you, from Malcolm?
I think once or twice. I mean, I saw a hat-trick against Liverpool on his home debut, and I was to be in Wembley when he scored 5, almost a double hat-trick, because he got a goal that was chalked off. So that would have been a double hat-trick. But I mean, can you imagine if we could have played all the players at one time that were the great Newcastle players, and we could have a front three of Malcolm MacDonald and Alan Shearer and Jackie Milburn, and we could have Gaza in midfield with Beardsley and Tony Green. And we love Fantasy Islanders, Geordies, don't we? And that they would have been very, very special days. But each and every one of them have given us tremendous memories that we will treasure, because Geordies do that. We're not about winning things, because we don't win them, but we're about adoring the people that have entertained us. And we've had so many down the years. Yeah, we might be a bit short of them at the moment. In fact, we might be very short of them at the moment. But we've had some great, great players. And let's not forget, when we're talking about Gaza, somebody that played with Gaza, although a little bit older than him, Peter Beardsley, is one of the most fabulous players that's ever played for Newcastle United, and had some skills which were quite unbelievable, both as a finisher and a creator. And there's another terrific from our past. I think Peter was quite exceptional as well, Steve.
There's a question for you, John, before we finish, from John Mitchison. Can you remember how many hat-tricks Supermac had at Newcastle?
That's a great question. Not particularly, because he was a 20 goal to 30 goal a man season per season every time he was here. The record book would tell us the one that stands out, obviously, was his home debut against Liverpool. And then the one that stands out with England was getting 5 in a game. I mean, can you imagine that? But I mean, these are special people that stand apart. We love number 9s. And when you say, how many goals did Wojciech score and Alan Shearer score and this guy, Supermac, score? And I tell you what, it was a lot more than anybody has scored for a long time for Newcastle. And that is one of the sadnesses, because, you know, when you've got strikers like those guys, Steve, what you know before the season starts. We are now worried in the summer about what will happen when Newcastle start the season in August. Will we have a relegation fight on our hands? Will we be worried that we'll go through the same fear and trauma that we've just gone through now? If you've got Supermac, if you've got Alan Shearer or Jackie, or if you've got Ferdinand or Andy Cole, you're guaranteed not to be in a relegation fight. regardless of if how good or bad your defence is, you're not in a relegation fight with 4 goals like that. They make certain you're not. And that is what we lack now. And if we've only got Callum Wilson next season because Willock's gone, and Callum Wilson, bless him, the one minus he's got is that he can't be injury prone, then we will be living on a wing and a prayer next season.
Quick prediction for the Champions League final, John, before we finish. Obviously, 2 English sides. Man City played Chelsea.
Man City, for me, will win that. And if not comfortably, quite comfortably, Chelsea have been alarming recently on how much they've picked. Man City are much more entertaining side than Chelsea are. They play football in the right manner, and therefore, and they haven't won it before, which Chelsea have, and not having any allegiance to either side. But I think Man City will win it simply because they've got the players, and therefore, if you're a purist, you love your football, then you want them to be rewarded. For me, Man City. And by the way, may it please be a better final than last night's, because that was like paint drying. It was like paint drying. I mean, one side played for penalties, Villarreal, and the other side were incapable of doing anything about it. Awful stuff. And Man United at the moment, with Solskjaer and everything else, Steve, are the nearly men, aren't they? They're losing the semi-final of all cups, and then when they get the final, they're losing in the penalty shootout. They are the nearly men. City, which will be as galling to United fans, if Man City go and put on display and win. And also, wouldn't it be nice if Aguero got on, because he has been so wonderful, if he got on and scored the winning goal in the 83rd minute? Aguero deserves that. He is the poor man's Alan Shearer, because we are Geordies. We think he's the best.
John, great place to leave it, mate. Next week we'll have a look back at Newcastle United season. I'll ping you an email, and Mal as well, and we will look back over the season one last time with our highlights and lowlights. And John, have a great weekend. Have a good bank holiday. Take care.
Thanks a lot, mate. God bless. Take care, fellas.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look